No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I want to talk about an article that I saw on LinkedIn that kind of triggered me just a little bit. And it's got a little bit of a clickbaity title, but I think the information in it is relevant, very relevant right now, actually. The title of the LinkedIn article says, "Want a promotion? Don't work from home."
Yeah. That's very clickbaity. Very clickbaity.
Very clickbaity. Yes. And very like there's a half of my brain read that and thought those are fighting words right there, and the other half of my brain read that and went, yeah, there's probably some truth to that, So it's a both. Like there's this like kind of duality of parts of me that fight against each other because of I see so much in terms of the benefits of both situations. I think there's a lot of benefit to working in office. I think there's a lot of benefit to working from home, and these are decisions that companies make all the time in terms of forcing their employees or removing options. And there are companies where employees get to make these decisions on their own. And in the context of this article, really focuses around the situations where employees can kind of make decisions, not just within their organization, but in terms of what job to take altogether, what organization to work for. And so there's a lot of data in this, and I like that it's data driven. It's not just one person's opinion that you could say, well, they just want their employees to come to work or they just want to be work from home. It's backed by data, and I like that aspect of it. But it's got some compelling reasons why, if you are in an organization and you have the opportunity to work from home, but your organization as a whole isn't typically work from home, that you may want to consider what the implications are of that decision before you take it.
Yeah, there's two things that kind of stuck out to me right away, and this the evolution of the workforce. And so right now, according to this article, it says nearly 20% of all employees with a college degree or higher worked fully remotely as of December. So like literally as of like a month ago. 20% of employees with a college degree or higher. That's tremendous. Like that seems like a really big number compared to what it used to be. And then it also says
single digits before the pandemic.
Absolutely, right. And then it also says people who work in office every day aren't promoted any more frequently than hybrid workers. So this really, all of this context is like work from home 100%. Like it's not, the comparison here isn't like hybrid working and then those that are always in the office. It's like based upon this data, it's like, no, you are 100% work from home. And according to this, the data says that workers are getting promoted 31% less frequently than people who work in the office at least part-time. Right. So again, it's like that's what the data is showing up here. But I think it's something for us to definitely unpack because it appears that the workforce is continuing to increase that number from a work from home standpoint. And now, to your point earlier, we're getting to the point where this is becoming, more than just maybe, individual contributor jobs or jobs where there isn't like career pathing or promotional opportunities. To have more people working from home means that you need to have more layers of leadership to be able to help to lead those people that are working from home. So there's going to be more jobs that way, but also the size of the organization, the percentage of people working from home versus in office, these become really big factors when it comes to the opportunities that would exist in maintaining career growth while only working from home.
Right. So I'll start by saying that, my personal opinion only, and based on what works for me, I love the idea of a hybrid work environment. I think there's a lot of work that in my personal life that I could do that doesn't need to be done in an office, but I get so much value out of the in-person interactions with people that the idea of being wholly in office or wholly at home, it leaves things on the table that I think I want to have in my life. So I like the idea of hybrid environments. What this article is talking about is not those people, obviously, and it's also not talking about the people who are work from home in organizations where everybody works from home. Like there are organizations out there that don't have a home office. They don't have a location. Like the job is a work from home job. There are outside salespeople. There are, over the phone customer service reps where you sit at a home office and your house is quiet. You put on headphones and you take calls all day. Like where there isn't a place to go to if you wanted to. That's not what this is talking about. What this is saying is that if you work in an organization where there is a home office, there is a location to go to, and you have the option of being fully remote if you want to be, that there's some trade-offs when it comes to the likelihood of you getting promoted. And it comes down to a numbers thing. If there are a certain number of promotions that happen per year, and 10% of your company works from home and 90% of your company works from the office, then it stands to reason that 90% of the promotions will happen from people who work in the office and 10% of the promotions will be given to people who work from home. And that means that your competition is less people, but it's also probably fiercer because the number of opportunities is lower as well. And so that's something you have to consider if you are in a work from home role as opposed to one that can be done in the office. The other thing to consider is proximity bias is something, it's a real thing. It's something that's been talked about for a while. And it just means that the people that are close to us are the ones that we create relationships with. That's all it means. And the people that you have relationships with are the ones that are more likely to be advocates for you in the doors and windows that open for you in your career versus people who you have transactional relationships every once in a while over a Zoom call.
Yeah, I think that's such an important part of it because, again, I think there's ways that you have to look at it when you're thinking about career advancement and promotional opportunities. And like step one in that is like you have to have the outcomes of whatever job you have now. Like you have to have outcomes that are measured in a way that show that you're ready for the next job, that
Yes.
you are like you're kind of a quality candidate for a promotion because you're doing the job that you currently have at a certain level or higher. Then you get into the space where, okay, well now what happens if I've got 5 people that all are doing that level of work? And now I have to start to make a decision as a leader and like, what's the differences? Like, what are the skills that are needed? What's the relationships that they have with their peer group? What have I been able to see and witness in regards to their leadership, how they inspire people, how they mentor people? What does it look like when they're working under pressure? Like these are things that now, if everybody is all coming to the table and are all producing the outcomes that are needed for a promotion, now we start to get into some of these other types of filters that require observation, that require relationships, that require the ability for a leader to assess their talent, their potential via seeing how they do the work. And to your point, that typically in many organizations is easier to do when you're around people, when things happen, when you're in meetings, when you're having informal conversations, when you're seeing how they do different things throughout an office or with a team. It's not that you can't see that in work from home or the virtual world. It just requires a different level of intention, a different level of focus, a different way to observe those same types of behaviors. The same way that that person can, have a conversation with a peer around helping them to get better. I can sit at the table and listen to that. I can be 5 feet away and see what's going on. Or I can log into the virtual meeting and see how they do. Like there are ways for many of these things to be done both in person and virtually. But there is also a reality when we're looking in this comparison that as a leader, if that leader is spending their time either hybrid or in an office, they're going to have more time with those individuals. If the leader is 100% also work from home or they spend time leading a fully work from home team, then it really becomes on the leader to make sure that they are assessing those things in a way that allows them to understand and see the potential and capabilities of each of the individual people. And so I think it's important that, you said this earlier, if a company is 90% in office hybrid and 10% work from home, that means that if there are promotions and career progression, a much smaller percentage of that's going to happen in the work from home team. if that's 10%. If you're work from home, you want to stay at work from home, your potential for promotion is much smaller if you're a smaller percentage of the whole. If you're in an office or hybrid and you have 90% of the employee base there, those opportunities for promotions will be a lot higher. There'll be a lot more of them based on the numbers and data alone. And you have to understand that if work from home works for you, those types of jobs will probably be fewer and far between, and the competition will be much heavier because it's only the people that are working from home.
Right. I think about my time working in corporate HR for Best Buy from 2009 through 2011. And I wanted to live in Southern California, and so I stayed living in Southern California, and I would fly to Minneapolis about one or 2 weeks a month for over the span of 2 years. And so I was up there probably a total of maybe 30 or 40 weeks total over the course of 2 years. There was this kind of like main kind of quad or hub area where these 4 buildings kind of came together, and you had to kind of walk through it almost like a high school quad, where people walk from one building to another to go to meetings and stuff like that. And I tended to want to sit at a table in that kind of hub area whenever I wasn't actively in a meeting or meeting with somebody. Like I was just getting work done, I'd want to be in that area. And the reason why I wanted to is because the number of people that walked by who I saw and struck up conversations with was very high. Now, in the total time that I did that, there were probably half a dozen projects that came onto my plate that I was able to do good work as a part of because of just happening to be sitting there when someone walked by, and we struck up a conversation about what they were working on, and I said what I was working on, and then we talked about where those 2 roads could intersect and how we could help each other out, and we ended up doing good work together, and that became a relationship, and it became a project, and it became something else to put on my resume, so to speak, of a personal work experience. Now, of all of the hours spent in that place, if that only happened, 5 or 6 times, you could say that the average was really low. But it happened 0 times during the weeks that I was at home, right? 0 times. And so the idea of what doors open simply because you happen to be somewhere when something happens versus not being there when it's happening, I don't think that can be undercut. We think about a person in the office, and all of a sudden there's a fire, not a real fire, a figurative fire, a project that comes, a deadline that's all of a sudden due, something to change, and they're working hard at it. If you happen to be walking by their office when this is happening and you see that they're kind of in a little bit of a tizzy, being able to jump in and say, hey, what can I do to help? Can I help you get through this for the moment? If you're working from home, you won't know that's happening until it's already solved by whoever is there to help that person solve it. Now, is that okay? Sure. But there's a toll that takes over the long term in terms of the relationships that you are able to create just by being there when things happen. And I've gotten personally a lot of value over those just happenstance opportunities that come that you don't know if it's going to lead to anything, but eventually something does, because everything is about relationships and everything is about what people you have kind of in your bullpen who will go to bat for you to say, hey, I want Chris on this project. I want Lorenzo on this project. We did great work together last year on this thing, and I want him on this again. I think Lorenzo should be promoted. I don't think Chris should be laid off in the next round of layoffs because of the work that was done on this project and that project and that project. All of these things matter in the context of your name coming up in the room when you're not there. And we talk about it in a lot of episodes. We said some of the biggest decisions around your career are made when you're not even in the room. That's what we mean when we talk about relationships mattering.
Yeah, and what we got to be careful of though as well is like it's not a matter of trying to convince or talk through why you shouldn't work from home.
Right.
Like these are real examples of things that you've kind of experienced yourself, things that we can see. But the reality is that there's also a piece of this that I think is just the way that some organizations and some leaders even view work from home as something that's new. And like, let's be honest with it. Like there's data here from, I think Nick Bloom from Stanford professor had popped into here to share some data around just how leaders or managers and non-managers think about the culture impact of something like work from home. And the funny part is about 60% all say it's about the same. The difference, like as far as like what they believe the culture will be in the future, it would be about the same, with the work from home. The difference is that with leaders and managers, there is a much higher percentage that says they think that the work from home piece will have a more of a negative impact on culture than those that are non-managers, right? And that's interesting to see that, because I think that, to your point, while there can be a lot of things that for a fact can be helpful in building the relationships that can help to move your career along, there's also this piece of it that if people consistently look at it that way, or leaders look at it that way as like, well, this is something that's not good for us or not good for our culture, then that, even whether it's unconscious, conscious, or explicit, bias is going to happen in some of the decision making that's going to be out there. And so, like, if you've chosen to work from home and that works best for you and that's what you want to do, these are some things that you really can't control to a degree, but you can have an influence on the relationships and the work that you do to build that career. So I think that's also important to call out, because I think that this is something that from a workforce and from a leadership evolution standpoint that leaders are working on and working through right now. And I think over time, these numbers will start to more align with themselves in regards to the negative or positive look when it comes to like work from home and hybrid working.
Right. And let's be clear, there are a lot of really bad reasons why managers and leaders want people to work in office. And if you have the option of working from home and your leader or manager can't articulate why it's better to work in office, then and it's just because they want to be able to keep their eye on you, or they want to be able to, they feel like they have a harder time leading someone who is remote, so they want that person in the office. That's the wrong reason to work from office. That should really weigh into your decision of whether or not you're in the right job, as opposed to or working for the right person, whether or not, or instead of decision to work from home or not. And so again, this is all about just trade-offs. And as long as you go into it with your eyes open and you're making a decision in terms of what's best for you, short-term, long-term, your goals in terms of your career, your family life, the balance that you have, it's not about trying to change what that is. It's about making sure that you feel like you are armed with the information and that you have the right to make that decision for yourself in a way that works best for you, knowing that it's really difficult to have something that lets you have the best of everything. Everything in life is a trade-off. The trade-offs that are important to you are the ones you have to decide on your own. No one should be deciding that for you.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 Minute Hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
All right, for this episode's 1 Minute Hack, if you are a work from home employee and you have the opportunity to do either, so your job is such that you have peers that work in office or hybrid, and you have peers that work from home, and kind of the option is yours to make, there are some very strategic things you can do to kind of make sure that you are setting yourself up for success when it comes to doors being opened for you in the future, when compared with people who are working in all types of roles, both in office and hybrid as well. The first one is around proactive visibility. Make sure that you are scheduling check-ins with your manager. The next one is around making sure that your impact can be quantified. So track your metrics, track your performance, whatever that looks like. Be able to speak to it in a moment's notice so that you can quantify what your value add to your organization is. Building relationships. We've talked about this before. This is huge. Engage in the activities that you do. If it's a virtual meeting, don't be the one that just sits there with the camera off and being quiet and taking all the information in, especially if you're in a Zoom meeting with people who are all in a room together and you're the one who's not in that room. Be the one speaking up and contributing and making sure that you're a valuable impact on whatever that meeting is, even if you are virtual, and then continuously learning. Always be learning about more about the organization, more about the ways you can contribute in ways that might step outside of your role or that help people who don't work in the same roles that you work. Anything that you can do to make sure that you are visible, contributing, and creating relationships are things that will help you in the long run if you want to make sure that you continue to be able to work from home, but not have as many doors closed for you in terms of promotability.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important. Again, there's so many factors here in regards to the potential based upon the organization and opportunities that happen there. But I think that, if there's one big takeaway that I would say is continuing to build your relationships across the board, continuing to be proactive with how you're sharing your work, how you're making sure that your outcomes are not just, kind of at expectation, but are really like in a space where you're showing the potential to be promoted to the next role. And pushing yourself from a learning standpoint. I think these things are important to see, because I think when leaders are making decisions for opportunities, it's not just a matter of, okay, you've done this job well, now if I give you this next job, like, can you do it? Like, the idea is like, I've seen the behaviors, I've observed and understood, how you were finding success in your current role, and I believe that you can apply those same behaviors and skills into the next role, because then that will allow you to be successful there, which then can promote you to the next role. So a lot of this is making sure that you're getting time with the decision makers, and sometimes that is your direct boss. Sometimes there's others people that are involved, and so proactively engaging with them outside of an interview process or when a job is open is critical to making sure that people are very familiar with not just your body of work, but where you want to go, how you want to grow, and the work that you're able to do, driven by the behaviors and the skills that you have.
Right. I think the last thing I want to say on this is that because of the emotions around a lot of these decisions, because they involve people making decisions that inherently involve trade-offs in terms of how they're able to engage with their spouses and partners and kids and personal life and work life and their promotability. These are all things that are emotional because they are very personal to the individuals making these decisions. Because of that, it can be easy to look at the title of the article that is being cited here by LinkedIn, which the title of the article directly says, "New data shows remote workers are losing out on promotions." Don't make the mistake of reading that and thinking that it says remote workers should be losing out on promotions. Look at the data and look at ways that you can make it so these things don't impact you as much, and don't fall into the trap of trying to make a values or cultural argument on it. The chips are going to fall where they may, and every organization is going to be different. What you can do that will help you out is what you need to do to help you out. And these are the strategies that we talked about in this episode to make sure that you can continue making decisions that best support the spirit of how you want to engage with your work and your personal life.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.